Hi, I'm Richard Hunt. I'm here today at Ashgrove Kitchens, and we're going to do a couple of lovely dishes just designed for the summer and the family. Obviously it's been a difficult time and they're very easy to do, and I think they'll give you quite a lot of enjoyment. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lovely shoulder of lamb, very simple all-in-one dish, lots of lovely vegetables, easy roasting, lots of flavour, can be shared around on a board on the middle of the table, lots of good flavours and no fuss. And then to finish, we're going to do a little strawberry tart, well, quite a big strawberry tart with creme pâtissière, which is confectioner's cream, which is one of the things I've just started now. So in one of these bowls, all I've done is I've got some 2 eggs, 3 egg yolks, 50 grams of sugar, 50 grams of flour, and then I've brought to the boil 500 mils of milk and 250 mils of double cream with a good squeeze of vanilla paste. So rather than vanilla essence, which is all chemical, there's a real vanilla paste. So it's got all those seeds and all that flavour. I've just brought the milk to the boil, poured it on the eggs and flour mixture, and then whisked it. And what you end up with is a really thick, lovely custard, which we've got here. Okay, it's very important to do that. I'll just put that in the sink. Then we pass it through a sieve. We just scrape it through into a sieve like this, just in case there are any lumps. Now I'm being very confident, I know there are no lumps in this, so that's okay. But it will just give it a much smoother texture. And we're going to let this cool down in the fridge before we put it in our tart. Now our tart is going to be made of what they call a sweet short crust pastry. Very, very simple. I'll run you through that in a minute. I've already made it because obviously you don't want to be, you can buy it, but you don't want to be wasting time watching me make a bit of pastry. You can buy very, very good sweet pastry these days, but sometimes it's nice when you've got a bit of time, and baking has been a massive thing as we've seen with supermarket shelves. There isn't, you don't get much opportunity to sit there and make some pastry or make some bread, so give it a go. So you see we've got a beautiful, smooth, creamy custard. This is great for filling tarts, mille-feuille, the puff pastry mille-feuille, or profiteroles, choux pastry. Keeps for about 3 or 4 days in the fridge. And if you really want to make it indulgent, you can flavour it with chocolate or coffee. It goes really well. And also, if you feel the calories aren't really an issue, fold a bit of whipped cream into it as well. That'll lighten it up, but also give it a beautiful flavour. So I've put this into a glass bowl over some chilled water because I'd like to sort of get it cold quite quickly. There you go. And it must be thick. We're not making custard or creme anglaise, we're making a pâtissière, a confectioner's custard. If it's not thick, all your tart and everything, all the fruit will basically go to the bottom, which we don't want, it will sink. So a little trick as well, just to stop a skin forming on top of it, get a little bit of cling film and just rest it over the top of the custard. I'll show you that in a second. If I can pick it out there. There we go. So it's just make sure it's touching the top of the custard, and that will basically stop you getting a skin forming. Okay. So we'll leave that chill in there for about 15 minutes, and then we'll put it in the fridge just to finish off. So I'll take that over there. Okay. So our main course. Shoulder of lamb. We've got a lovely shoulder of lamb here that's already been boned out. You can get it from the butcher. It's a much more value cut than the leg. A piece like this, a supermarket one, would be about £15. If you were to buy a leg of lamb this size, it would be about £28. So it's quite a lot of money. So I'll put it onto this board. Hopefully we're still in focus, are we? Cool. Grab a nice knife. Right, okay, so if I run around the sort of ingredients we have today for this, we've got some lovely butternut squash, give a beautiful sweetness, very easy to prepare. I've just peeled it. I'll show you how to get rid of the seeds and everything in a second. Some lovely onions, lots of garlic, and these sweet little peppers which we can roast whole in the same dish. Quite often at the moment there's quite a fad for Moroccan or Middle Eastern, so yogurts, cumins, all those type of spices, chili. This is much more what I call a summery British traditional dish. We've got some wonderful herbs here, we've got some mint, we've got some fresh thyme, parsley. We're just going to add it all and let the flavour of the lamb come through. It's not about dominating. So what we'll do is we'll start with just the vegetables. We're just going to roughly chop them, just into nice pieces, okay? Nothing too dramatic. This is not about finesse, this is about flavour. There are times when, as a chef, we'll sit there and do all pretty pictures on a plate. This is about food you want to eat, okay? Which is far more important. And also, you don't want to be fussed with it. There's nothing worse when you end up having to shop for 4 or 5 hours to get ingredients for this wonderful recipe. It takes you another 4 or 5 hours to do, and then you end up buying a takeaway because it's much easier. The garlic, we don't peel it. Cut it in half. Just pop it in there. What will happen with this will roast and give a lovely flavour. The squash, cut through the one piece, this piece, and then we just kind of cut it into quite large chunks. We don't want it too small because, again, we want it to sort of cook at the same time as the lamb will cook. And the lamb will probably take about an hour and a quarter, not much longer. Because we're going to butterfly it out, we're not going to leave it as a whole joint, we're going to butterfly it. It's a much quicker dish. So that all goes in there, it's already looking good. Yeah, I'll do a little bit more. Now obviously your butternut squash, you've got the seeds in the middle. Okay, little small knife. You can take them out. Now don't throw them away, because this year, like a lot of us, I've started growing things in the garden, and miracles do happen. I've actually managed to grow some things and not kill it all. So I planted some pepper seeds, I planted some courgette seeds out the centres, and we've got courgettes and we've got peppers this year, which is great. So we're doing really well. Right, onto the lamb. So this is a shoulder of lamb. So obviously from this side of the animal, the front part, there's the bone that goes down to what I call down to the foot. Okay. And what we've done is we've taken the bone out. You can get your butcher to do this. He'll be quite happy to do it. And all we've done is just spray it out like this. Keep it nice and flat. The reason is it'll cook so quickly. I'm just going to cut it in half. Okay. And then I'm just going to say, right, well, we're going to put that on there with the vegetables. And then a load of herbs. So loads of fresh thyme. Just give it a crush. I mean, don't be shy, be generous. The parsley, stalks and everything, don't worry about that. The stalks have got more flavour in them than the actual leaves. Okay, pop it all under there. Touch of mint, same thing. The mint will give a slight sweetness and it will complement the butternut squash really well. Okay, there we are. A bit more parsley. Okay, there we are. So what we need now, very important seasoning. Actually, go out first. Salt and pepper, don't be shy, plenty of it. Open up your lamb again, underneath, same again. Alright, nice bit of salt. Any salt will do. This sea salt's, people use sea salt, which is quite often bigger crystals. I find it doesn't get as good a coverage. This fine salt is much, much better. You can get a much more even coverage over everything. Okay, there we go. A little bit of olive oil. My drawer of secret ingredients. I did have some here somewhere. There we are. Just a little bit of olive oil. Just like that. Okay. Now, this knuckly piece, pop in there as well. Take a little bit longer to cook because basically that's a bit like a lamb shank. The lamb shank's obviously off the hind leg of a lamb. Obviously this is the shoulder, so it hasn't got quite as much meat on it. It will take a little bit longer to cook because it's got tendons and things, so it's quite tough, it does a lot of work. So what we do with that, pop it into a preheated oven, okay? So we're using our Neff ovens here. And we'll pop that to about 170, 175. Okay, that'll take about an hour, that's all. And in that time, all the flavours of the vegetables will start to come through to the lamb, the garlic will break down. And just at the end of the cooking, with about 10 minutes to go, we'll add the peppers in, because they don't take as long, and they'll be tremendous. They'll give another element of sweetness to it. We're going to serve that basically with a few lovely little rosemary roasted new potatoes. Now obviously I can do this, please don't put your hands in boiling water. I can do it, you can't. I'm just parboiling them, a little bit of rosemary, and then all we're going to do, toss them in a little veg oil, throw them in the oven with about half an hour to go, and they'll be ready to serve with it as well. And what we'll get is we'll get a beautiful light dressing from the lamb, and we'll have those wonderful potatoes as well. All in the middle of the table will be a great, great dish. Okay, so we've started our main course, which is cooking away beautifully in the oven, not a problem at all. While that's happening, we're going to make our tart. We've made the creme pâtissière, which we've talked about. Now we're going to line our tart shell and bake it blind. Now I talked about earlier on about sweet pastry, which is what this is. This is in French, if you want to be clever, it's a pâté sucré. Okay, all it is 500 grams of flour, normal plain flour, 350 grams of butter, 75 grams of icing sugar, and 2 eggs to bind it. It's a very, very short and very unfriendly dough to work with. Okay, so you have to work two things, quickly and gently. Now, as you can see, as a chef with my hands and not being a pastry chef, both of those things probably aren't quite in my remit, but we'll give it a go. So my dough's there. I've got a tart tin. Now, this is an 8-inch tart tin with a bottom from somebody else's tart tin because somebody lost the bottom of that one. It often happens. Okay, you don't need to grease it. Because we're going to bake it blind and cook the tart shell fully, we don't need to grease it because it will naturally shrink away. Alright? If you put too much butter and too much grease on, then again we'll get a very greasy, horrible tart. Okay, so plenty of flour on the board with your pin. Now nice and gently. Now there's going to be a bit of patchwork going on here as well, so this will see how good you are at filling holes, because sometimes it will naturally rip or make a hole. And as I said, you can buy this pastry now. A lot of good supermarkets have it. Puff pastry doesn't really work. What you're after is a nice, crisp, crumbly texture, lovely sweet pastry to hold your filling. Okay. Short crust will work, but I just don't think it has the same richness, especially when you're doing a dessert like this. This is what you really need. So, I'm just going to cut the edges off because I don't need quite this much pastry. The other key is we want it quite thin. Alright? To quote a very famous cookery show, we don't want soggy bottoms here. Okay? It's not about soggy bottoms, it's about nice crisp pastry. So, keep rolling. And a nice turn. You have to be gentle. Always roll away from you, okay? One of the things that some of the famous chefs always say, the Roux brothers particularly, Michel Roux, who's just passed away, very, very famous pastry chef, has a very big thing against people rolling side to side because, as he said, you can't put pressure properly this way. This way you can put nice even pressure across your pastry. So that's why you should always do that. Now we're not quite there yet, nearly. Another roll this way. Have a look. It's going to rise slightly in thickness, okay, so you don't want it wafer thin or else it will just crackle all over the place and all you'll be doing is patching it up. So that looks pretty good. Onto our pin, roll it up, and bring our tart shell in. You just lift your pin up, make sure there's some overlapping, as well we find out I haven't rolled it far enough. Oh, that's a relief. So in we go. Now, big mistake people do, pastry will shrink back, so you've got to be gentle, you've got to not stretch it, okay? Just gently, I'll do it this side, just drop it into the corners. You're not stretching it, you're just dropping it in. Because if you stretch it, and when you try and bake it blind, then it will shrink, and then you can lose your filling. Now, if you're making something like a lemon tart or a chocolate tart, where you're going to fill it with a liquid, that's what can happen. The most dangerous thing, it will shrink, all the liquid will come out, and you'll just have a horrible mess. So be very, very gentle. This is what I say, this is where, when you're doing pastry work like this is the day that you want to be nice and calm and nice and relaxed. Right? Any stress, you make bread. So you can beat the living daylights out of it. This you can't, okay? So now we push it into all nice little segments in there. Remember, we haven't stretched it, which is really good. There we are, nearly all in. It's right in all the corners. Lovely. Then we just take our rolling pin and straight across the top. Because it's a metal tin, it's nice and sharp, okay? It should just gently come off just like that. There we are. Now any of these trimmings, you can freeze them down no more than a month. Make sure they're wrapped really well. And then just put them in a nice freezer. Now all I'm going to do is just press into the indentation slightly, which will raise the tart slightly above the case. Just a little bit. It's another fail-safe. So we just do that. There we are. Very, very simple. There we go. Right. Get a little fork. Just prick the bottom, as you would with any tart shell. Now classically what you can do is put that in the fridge, let it set for half an hour, again because the pastry will relax a little bit, alright, and it'll bake better. But what we're going to do is we're going to line it straight away. So I'm going to get a piece of baking parchment, not greaseproof paper, baking parchment, and we're going to make something called a cartouche lining paper, just a chefy way of saying lining paper. Fold it into a square like so. And then all we do is we just make it into a cone shape, roll it into a cone shape, like that. Go to our tart shell. We just want to be on the outside edge of it, we don't want it totally in. Go strongly on, it's like ripping a telephone directory in half. There we are. And then you rip it, open it up. And you have a nice roundish oval that you just put in your tart. Now, this paper can be quite tough, it can be quite rigid, so to make it easier to go into all your little nooks and crannies, you're going to roll in your hands like this. That gets all the rigidity out of the paper. So now it's a bit more flexible, it'll go into your corners a bit better. There you go. You push it down into your corners, make sure it's all the way in, okay. There we go. Now we're going to line it, well just fill it with some rice, cheapest way, lasts forever, just some normal rice. This will keep the base down and stop the sides from collapsing. There you go. So again, push it all the way around, right into the corners gently. There we go. Like so. Okay, very, very simple. And then all we do is we put it in a preheated oven, about 160, for about 10 minutes before we check it. So in the oven it goes. Now another little secret when you're baking a tart blind, have a tray preheated in the oven, because as then the heat will come up through the tray and help cook the bottom quicker. So that goes in, about 10 minutes we'll have a check. Okay. So while that's done, I'm going to make the glaze for the top of our tart. And if you want to be chefy about it, and there's a very easy way to do that, you can use some gelatine or some agar gel. Now agar is made from seaweed, it's a setting agent, vegetarian. I'm going to cheat, because as much as I like doing it, you don't want to spend hours working out what gelatine is and how agar works. This is an old favourite of mine that I grew up on as a kid. So I've got a pack of quick gel. This does all the work for you. It's already got gelatine in it, it's ready to go, very, very easy. And all it needs is 3.5 fluid ounces of a liquid. So I'm using Pimm's. So we're going to have a a sort of a really nice summery glaze to go over the top of our tart. So we just put the pims into a saucepan. Okay. Switch it on. And it's like anything else. I'm not used to using packets, so I have to make sure. Blah 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 blah. There we go. That's fine. See, that's what everyone does when they use a packet. So get a little spoon or fork, and then as this comes to a nice heat, all we'll do is we'll just dissolve it, this jelly, because that's all it is. It's just jelly. The other one you can do if you really want to cheat, and it's a really easy one, is get a block of round cheese jelly or one of those flavoured jellies and just melt it in a little bit of warm water, or hot water, boiling water, and that makes a great glaze as well if you really want to be quick. But this has a lot more flavour and a nicer shine to it. So we're just going to dissolve it into our pims. That's it. There we go. The other one as well, you can use warmed strawberry jam or warm apricot jam if you wish. You know, there's so many different ways, but this is an old favourite of mine, and I think it does give a great result. So we just bring that to a little boil, just so the gelatine's dissolved. Now, obviously, if you don't want to boil it too much, because you don't want to lose too much of the pims flavour and you don't want to burn it, there's nothing worse than when you burn jelly and it just sticks, because this is the sugar in here. There we go. Now, very important, just to have a taste. This is purely for purposes of research. Okay, the pims is there. If it feels slightly bitter on your tongue, which I'm just tasting a little bit of bitterness there, I'm just going to add a touch of icing sugar to it. Just a small, perhaps a teaspoon, just to let the edge off it. There we go. Lovely. Another quick stir. And so we just bring it just to the boil, and then all we do is we take that off, we let that cool, don't put it in the fridge. So you put it in the fridge, you instantly got jelly. So we want it to, we want to leave it at room temperature until we're ready to use it, okay? Now we bring it to a boil for 1 minute. It's already at the boil. I'll turn it off now. And there we go, it's already thickening up. You hopefully see that on the camera there. It's quite a thick glaze already, okay? Now we just leave that to one side to cool, and then we'll be ready to glaze. What I'm going to do is I'll put it back in my pims jug. That my original pims in, there it is. We've already got a lovely ruby glaze ready to finish your tart. When you look at really good French patisserie or any tarts that are made like that, you'll always see a really lovely glaze over the top. Okay, so we're well underway now. Our lunch, our nice family lunch, family meal is cooking really well. We'll have a quick check of the ovens just to make sure everything's looking hunky-dory. So look, there we are, there's our lamb. I'll just take that out. All beginning to roast down really nicely. All the vegetables are softening down. There's some lovely juices in the bottom. So we're not wasting anything. That's the other thing. That's the important thing. Quite often if you don't do one pot cooking like that, you end up wasting the juices or whatever. This is all together, so the vegetables are all getting that lovely lamby, herby flavour. So that'll be really delicious. Our tart shell, so a while back we put it in, just to have a look how it's baking blind. Now, if I take that out, it's beginning to firm up on the edges. So we'll give that another 5 or 6 minutes, just before we take the rice out. Okay. And the thing is to be patient, right? Don't rush it, because if you rush it, that's when mistakes happen. So while that's going on, this is the sort of time we start thinking about our potatoes to go with our lamb. So I've got my new potatoes there, all part cooked. They're not fully cooked, they're just done. So where the knife just goes in. If they were overdone, they'd just fall apart. So just a little touch of oil. Some fresh rosemary, okay? Very easy to grow herb. A lot of mistakes people make with rosemary is they try and look after it too much. If you've got a rosemary bush or rosemary plant you want to put it in a rockery, forget about it. Don't water it, don't look up, don't think you would unlove it and it will love you back. Okay? A little couple of knobs of butter. In we go. Salt and pepper. Potatoes without salt are an abomination and should be banned. There we are. Okay. Nice crack of pepper. Quick toss over like so. Years of practice to do this. Normally if people do it, and even I do it, it goes all over the place, so it's alright. In underneath the lamb, and we just forget about those. They're on their way. So already, this is actually quite simple. We're not actually doing anything too dramatically strange. I'm going to turn my board over, get a clean knife, and we're just going to look at our strawberries now. This is the time of year for strawberries, okay? Don't buy them in October, November, December, because they're equivalent of Granny Smith apples. They'll have the same texture and they'll taste the same. These are British strawberries, okay? They've got a lovely colour all the way around. That tells you they've been grown outside in the natural sunlight. When you get the ones from France and Spain and Holland, you get the white ring around the outside, which tells you they've been grown under glass, because the sun hasn't managed to get to them properly. So what we're going to do for our tart, just going to take the tops off, just cut them in half. Obviously there is an important thing that's very important, a bit of quality control. Yeah, that'll do. I think Keith Floyd's always said, particularly he's like with alcohol, never cook with anything that's not good enough to either eat or drink, particularly wine. So we'll cut these through. Our glaze is ready. Reject any others. Now if you want to make strawberry jam, good time of year to do it. Very, very simple. All you need to do, pound of strawberries, pound of sugar, and if you can get it, jam sugar, so use the equivalent, or granulated sugar with a little bit of either apple pectin, which you can buy in the supermarket, and a little touch of lemon juice. Bring it to a boil, all together, 105 degrees. Take a dollop out and try and set it on a plate. If it has a skin on it, it's ready. Put it in jars, and you've got that for the rest of the year, which is the time we want it, when all these soft fruits aren't about anymore. Okay. Obviously, clotted cream, the classic, beautiful strawberries and clotted cream. Nothing else will do. We won't talk about cream teas, okay, because we've gone over that one, and there's only one way. And with the greatest respect to my friends at Marks and Spencer's, strawberry clotted cream does not work. And we'll talk about that later as well. So just carry on with these, that's not a problem. You don't need any sugar with these, okay? Our custard's reasonably sweet, our tart's reasonably sweet. These have beautiful natural flavours in them. So, you know, there's no reason to put any extra sugar on them at all. There's going to be quite a lot, because nothing worse when you get a tart that's not very generous. You're sitting there and it's like one piece of fruit per person, okay? This is about enjoying nature's bounty in its season. So, do plenty. And remember, if there's any left over, that's the cook's treat, okay? Right, I'm going to go in the fridge quickly and just grab our creme patissier that we did earlier on today. Grab a spoon. Now already, we've got a lovely thick custard. Okay, that's still warm, all right, but that's going to carry on firming up. It's got no skin on it, it's beautifully smooth, and it will taste wonderful. That vanilla, rich, creamy goodness to it. So that's good. Okay, pop that back in the fridge. Now this is where the fun and games begin, because we're going to get our tart out and take out the rice out of it. So into our oven. One thing about these ovens, because they're slide and hide, they really make a difference. We'll take our tray out, okay. Looking good. Now, there's nothing worse than rice in your tart, so this is where you have to be careful. Okay. Always take it from an edge, bring it to the middle. Because there's one thing, you don't want to be picking rice out of your tart for the next 3 hours. Nice and gently, okay? There we go. So our tart shell now is slightly cooked around the sides. The bottom is still raw. Right, I'm going to pop it back in now, and this is where we're going to finish it off and get it nice and crisp. So back in. About another 15 minutes, I would say, and we'll be there. 160, no problem. Okay, so we're heading towards the final furlong, as they say in the racing game. Our lamb is here nearly done. I'll take it out just quickly. And consequently, you can see it's all roasted. All the vegetables are nice and soft. I'm just going to throw in those peppers we talked about. Just put them in there like that. They won't take long, 10 or 15. Have a look at the garlic. Garlic's beginning to lovely and soft, so you can squeeze that out and eat it. All right. We'll just pop that back in. Our beautiful potatoes now are beginning to roast up, so I'm going to crank up the gas, as they say. 210. He says eventually, when he does it right. Come on. There we go. And then our tart case. We'll take that out now. Now, when you open it, it almost smells like shortbread. It's that sort of smell. This is another critical part of the process. Many a time I've lifted it up and forgotten to put my hand through the bottom of the tin, and it's actually ended up breaking the tart. So we've got a nice crispy tart shell, which is looking good. I'll just take that out and leave that to cool. Now you see we've got a lovely golden brown on that. Beautiful colour. And as you can see, as I said before, you don't need to grease the tin. It's already coming away from the sides of the shell. So about a half an hour, that will be cool, and then we'll be ready to fill. So I'll pop this back in the oven. Now, while I'm going to finish these, I'm just going to chop some parsley. Now, parsley chopping things is a big thing with people, that they struggle to chop it. The secret is sharp knife, number one. And we've talked about it in the past. Don't hold the knife like you're about to axe murder somebody, okay? Always hold it slightly down further, and you get more control. As long as it's sharp, just bring it together. You don't need to put your hand there. If you want to put your hand there, you can. Just keep the point of the blade down. Okay, and just keep moving it around. We're letting the edge of the knife do all the work here, rather than actually crushing the herbs, because there's nothing worse than really bruised herbs. A little secret as well, any soft herbs, parsley, tarragon, chives, anything like that, always add them at the last moment to the dish, because that's when they'll have all their flavour and all their colour. If you add them at the beginning, naturally they're going to go a horrible camouflage colour, they're going to lose all their flavour and all their vibrancy. So there's no point in going through all that work of chopping parsley or chopping all these wonderful fresh herbs for them to look horrible at the end of the day. Okay, so chop that up. Right, that's ready to go. Okay. Now what I'm going to also show you while I was there is our gel. At the moment is already set. You see, that's going to glaze our tart. So you can actually warm that back through in a little bit of, seal it in a bit of warm water, and that will, what they call thermo-reversible gel. There you go. You have a bit of chemistry as well. It'll go back to a liquid if you put it in some nice warm water, ready to glaze. It's good, and that, you see what it'll do is it will also hold the tart together. So when we glaze it with the strawberries, the tart will then set together and come out in a nice slice. Rather than quite often what happens when you cut a tart with fresh fruit on it, all the fruit slides off all over the place. The jelly will hold it together and keep it in one piece. Okay, so ready to serve our main course. Let's grab them out of the oven, all the lovely things together. Now you can see our potatoes, beautifully roasted, lovely colour, and then our lamb. So we'll take this out, pop it on a trivet here. Look at that. So as you can see, what we've got, all our vegetables are lovely and soft, our peppers, our sweet potatoes. We've got this lovely sort of almost like juice sauce in the bottom, which is all the lamb juices, all the vegetable juices. Now if you want to, you can thicken that up. Personally, I don't tend to. I just use it as a nice dipping sauce with a bit of bread. But also, if you want to keep it, you can freeze it down and then use it for a stock at another time. Now, one of the secrets, obviously, is to let things rest. Best thing to do is you really should give it, probably for this, 10 or 15 minutes rest out of the oven, because then the meat will relax, all the juices will go back inside, and it'll be really, really tender. But what we're going to do, we're going to just show you because it's important, and you're probably salivating at the screen anyway. So there's our lovely little bit of lamb, beautifully cooked. You see all our vegetables, those peppers we've just put in, absolutely soft. Our onions are unctuous and sweet. So we can just do a bit of garnishing as well. This is where I get a bit chefy for the plate. Now normally you just put it on a big platter, loads of fresh herbs on it. I've got some pasta here. So we'll just put our onion on there. So that's sweet potato, beautifully soft. Sweet potato. Butternut squash. There's Auntie's Bloomers number 1 for the day. I'll garnish with a little bit of that garlic there. Okay, a bit more onion, a bit more pepper I think. Let's get a bit of yellow pepper on there. There we go, okay. So we've already got that there, nice and chefy. Take my big carving knife, my big chopping knife. Beautifully through the lamb. Now you can be as generous as you want or as not. There we go. That's looking really tasty. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of the cooking liquor over. Nice and simple as that. As we talked about, a nice bit of fresh parsley. Just add a little seasonal touch to it. Now if you want to be a funky and funk it up a little bit, find my little secret ingredient in here. It's been hiding from me. There it is. So I'm going to add a couple of potatoes on. Just that nice roasted potato, okay, and a little bit of balsamic. This is a balsamic glaze, just a little bit around, just to add a little something else to it. Alright, so there we go, with a beautiful one pot dish of a lovely roasted shoulder of lamb with vegetables. Very, very simple, great family dish, all the best of British ingredients that are around at the minute, and deliciously tasty. Right, okay, so we've had the main course, all great, everyone's now nicely full, but always room for dessert. So our tart, we've done our strawberry tart, we've baked it blind, it's lovely and crisp as you can see, nice and rigid, so you need that to hold the pastry cream. The pastry cream as we made earlier on, as we talked about, nice full fat milk, double cream, egg yolks, sugar, a little bit of flour to thicken and vanilla. It's been set in the fridge, so it's a nice thick custard now, okay. And what we're going to do, we're just going to pour a little bit into our tart case, just like that. There you go. This is the best bit now. Don't be shy. No point in being shy in this thing. If you're going to have the calories, have the calories. Right, spread it around. It should have a wobbly sort of texture. And as it chills out even more, it'll carry on setting up even more. So right to the edges. There we go. Now if you want to be even more indulgent with this tart case, if you want to be really good, you can line it with dark chocolate. So just melt some chocolate bar, pour it in, spin it round, let it set in the fridge, and that'll give another dimension to it. White or dark, it will really make a big difference. Right, our strawberries now, I'm going to pop them in all the way around. This is that labour of love. You can do it any way you like. I'm just going to do them in whole ones. I'm not going to do them in halves. I'll be here for 4 years otherwise doing it. So wrap them round. Oh, now that, see there, there's a critical error. One the wrong way up. I have to stab that one out. Come on, here you come. Presentation's important, however, chef's taste. That's okay. It'll pass. A bit more custard in there because I messed that up. Right, there we go. Carry on going round. This is where you can do all the preparation in advance, get all your strawberries cut, everything ready to go. Yep, keep going round. More the merrier. Now, as I say, you can do this with raspberries, you can do it with blackcurrants, loganberries, nice sliced peach or apricot is fantastic at this time of year. They're just coming into season, so that will give it another dimension. Apple doesn't really work, banana does. Banana's really good. Oh, see, he's throwing it everywhere. Get that one out as well. But anything that really takes your fancy. Kiwi's a lovely one. Very underrated kiwi fruit. Everyone sort of thinks that it's a sort of poor person sort of, you only see it on decoration, but actually it's got huge amounts of vitamin C, more than oranges, so it is actually worth doing. I'm going to fill a few gaps in, just before I do the next stage. Now, if we remember earlier on, we had some jelly glaze, which I've now got in a pastry brush, in a thing. I'm just going to spread a little bit on, just to help it all glue together. Push it down, because I haven't finished yet. It's a long way to go yet. This is sort of, you're building layers, as they say. This is a sort of a bit of cementing. We're starting a house, we've got the foundations in. We've done now the waterproof layer. So we're going to start finishing it off. There we go, a bit more there. Because this has got the pims in it, this will give a fantastic extra flavour dimension to it. There we are. Right. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to be a bit of a cheat as well. I've got some half strawberries as well. I'm sort of going to put round, all the way around the edge. Make it look pretty. And then I'm going to just pile a few strawberries on the top as well. Find the nice little ripe ones just to go on the top. Make a little mountain of strawberries. And so a great expression in the West Country is you eat it or climb it. Okay, this is definitely going to be a bit of both. So by the time you're finished, another one there as well. That side. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Now, a little bit of chefy finesse, if I can find some, and hopefully, aha, greatest thing ever, tea strainer. When you're doing pastry, bit of icing sugar in, just dust it all over the top. Like that. And there you go, you've got a wonderful English strawberry tart with crème pâtissière and sweet pastry. A lovely finish to a very simple family meal. Have a go, do it while it's in season, and enjoy.